Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Universal Journeys. Follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. Universal Journeys is about redefining ourselves to match the soul's purpose by illuminating the threads which intertwine creativity, spirituality, and identity. These threads encourage, empower, and enlighten us on our own respective journeys. And Brenda, have we been on a journey?
Oh my gosh, we sure have.
We have so been on a journey for many, many years when you think about it. We're
Definitely.
all on journeys.
Sometimes we don't even realize we're on a journey and we're on a journey.
And sometimes we're slapped in the face by one, and then we're like, oh,
Yeah, it's like,
reality check, right?
oh,
Ah.
yes.
So, Brenda, how have you been? What have you been up to?
I have been doing well, okay, for the most part, in trying to do what our subject is going to talk about is doing the balancing from retirement to, or yeah, from working to retirement. But other than that, I have gotten busy because I have walked into a couple opportunities within the VA. You know, they're volunteer opportunities, but I've walked into a couple. One is for the Women's Health Clinic, and the other one is for mental illness, a committee.
Hmm.
I'm on advocacy on for that. So I've been a little busy with that, and I've been enjoying it. So I was like, hey, oh, I was good.
As long as you've been enjoying it, have you been doing any outside stuff, outdoor stuff?
Yes, I have. I've been planting more of my roses. I have 4 more roses I have to plant. I have to dig up the box, the one box I don't have anything in except for one lupine who made itself known. So it did it all by himself, and it looks great. And so I'm going to leave that there, and then get rid of all the other stuff and plant my roses. Plus, I've cleaned out the rose beds and different things like that. So making sure
Good.
the lawn is mowed and my baskets and everything else. So yeah. How about you?
No, no, I've been doing well. I've been enjoying summer break kind of. I'm teaching one class right now, but I've also been doing a lot of gardening. We got our garden planted.
Yay.
And I decided to go up to my parents' house and plant a garden up there too. Because remember, I have like a crap load of tomato plants. So between both places, we have close to 50 tomato plants.
Yikes.
The rest of that, I have more. The rest of them I'm giving away to people. I'm just like, here, take a tomato plant, like free tomato plant. Here you go. But hopefully that will lead to some good harvests in the fall and some, canning. Like I want to do some canning this year. I think it's going to be kind of relaxing. I used to can a lot when I was a kid with my grandmother and my mom and stuff, and I haven't in so long that I'm just like, why am I not doing that? Why am I not being productive in that way? So, but it's been fun. It's been fun. So, oh my God, Brenda, I think when we were coming up with the ideas for the revival of this show, one of the topics that we were like, yes, we got to talk about this is work life balance because back on the original version of the show when we used to do like readings and stuff for people, work life balance came up so much because I feel like this is a struggle that almost everybody has, like this universal struggle of we're living in like this assembly line society where we are trying to balance sustaining our livelihoods while also doing things that we enjoy doing and spending time with the people that we love spending time with. It's challenging.
It is. And, especially with the prices of gas and food and products and, all that stuff, it makes it harder because we can't have those things unless we work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a family, you even work harder, especially if you have a one income family. And
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, even if you have a two income family, you still have times where you'll have to go out and try to make some extra money somewhere. And it
Yeah.
is not easy. So with that said, is when do you have that balance? When do you have that balance to be with your family in doing fun things instead of not fun things? And you know, it's a tough, it's tough.
Right. And don't get me wrong, like I know for many people work can be enriching, just as much as, you know, leisure or just living in general. Whereas there are other people who just think, I mean, who just have come to realize that working is not enriching their lives and it's just like some means to sustain what they got. And I think it's interesting that we've chosen this topic because I think that there is a major shift happening, especially when it comes to Gen Z, which we'll probably talk about here in a little bit. So I guess my first question would be, why is it important for an individual to work toward achieving a work life balance? Just realized how repetitive that question sounds.
And that's okay. And the reason why that you want to have a balance is because you're not taxing, you're giving your body time to replenish, to regenerate, to um, be with family, to help them understand what the balance is, and so you can give your child, say, more time, or your wife or your husband, or grandparents, parents, all of those individuals who, if you work, which I have done and I know you have too,
Hmm.
you don't give them the attention that they so need
Yeah.
and want and desire. So is very important. You should get, enough sleep and enough play and enough downtime, and it just makes your life more fulfilling if you do.
Right. I think so too. Well, it all comes back down to that enrichment, right?
Mhm.
Like, I do think that we are kind of at this point in society. So I think the pandemic really shaped this too,
Yeah, it
where
did.
like we were all working remote or not working at all, and it kind of made us realize the time that we have, how finite the time is when you think about it, and what are we doing when we are spending literally 30 to 40 years of our lives just working, right? And I think that a lot of like I know I've been kind of unpacking this a lot lately too because I've been really working on my own work life balance, but just unpacking like this, like what am I doing kind of mentality. Like what have I done? What am I doing? Is it like leading me in a trajectory that I want to be led in, things like that. Not questioning, I do love what I do, like
Mhm.
teaching. I love teaching very much. I love writing very much. But it's the balance, like the ratio in which I'm doing things where I'm like, what am I doing? Where is this ratio leading me? Should I alter that ratio a bit and like live a little bit more, travel more, like should I be doing that? Will that like be more enriching beyond what I'm doing right now? Yeah.
I can tell you that when I travel, I love to travel, I love to drive, I feel more alive.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm, say, home or when I was at work, it was like, okay, yep, this is something I have to do to pay the bills.
Yeah.
I feel guilty now that I've retired that I'm not doing as much as I used to. So that's a process of overcoming. But I also overcoming, you know, work versus, okay, now I got to slow down and enjoy. And then even there, you have to balance. Okay, you could go
Mm-hmm.
way over to one side, I'm not doing anything, or you could go way over the other side, I'm volunteering for everything.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I'm in the middle of kind of doing the balancing act with all of that, and it can be a challenge. But the nice thing about being retired, I'm not rubbing it in, but the nice thing about being retired is you can do whatever you want to do when you want to do it, and you can get up as early or as late as you want to. There's no one there saying you got to be here at 9 o'clock. Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So there's my balance. My balance is finally getting to where it needs to be for the health, my health. I mean,
Absolutely.
and I'm working on it too. So And that's important because, you have a lot of people who work, 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 and have all the anxiety and the pressure of working. And then you have, when you go home, you don't get to see your family that much. And there's another anxiety that happens.
Hmm.
So either one or two things happen. Either you have a heart attack while you're working because you work, you're stressing, you're working and everything else, or after you retire, not long after that, you just say, I'm done. And you give up and you don't continue to go. Then what happens is, there's a study was out there a long time ago, that at about 5 years is when a lot of people will perish because they don't have all that extra anxiety anymore.
Yeah.
And they were used to it. Their body was used to it.
Well, and mind you, like, the level of anxiety we're experiencing now is very kind of scary when you think about it, because not only are we navigating work, but we're looking at a lot of things happening in the world over the last several years that,
Right.
it's, I feel like we're experiencing a world changing, life altering scale event every year, it seems like. And like that also takes a toll too. But I really like what you mentioned when it comes to talking about like retirement and getting to a point where you are right now. I have the privilege of having a job where I have more control over my time management than I used to, say, working a 9 to 5 job, or heaven forbid, working multiple 9 to 5 jobs, which is what I did at one point. I will, like, a long time ago when I was like working as a barista and then like working other retail jobs, like simultaneously, my mental health was at its lowest during those times because I sun up to sundown at these places. Basically, I all I would have the energy left for is to just go home and sleep, right?
Mhm.
But and I noticed this once I made my transition into teaching, because I wasn't doing that like 9 to 5 expected thing anymore. Like I kind of got down on myself because I was like, am I being productive? Not in this schedule that's.
Mhm.
And I would always have people be like, well, you're a teacher, you have summer off. And it's like, we don't really technically have summer off. Like, we are still working. It's just, it's a different form of work. It's more like clerical and administrative versus being in a classroom and
Mhm.
teaching, right? But most people don't realize that. But it kind of like, I kind of felt ashamed. I was like, am I being, like, what is productivity? How do we define what productivity is? Am I doing it? And if I'm not, like, why am I feeling like this conditioned response of like I should feel bad for not being productive to the standard that other people seem to have, right?
Right. Right.
And I think that's also what causes us to kind of put our creative outlets on the back burner, hobbies, all of that jazz, because we're conditioned to think that that does not qualify as productive.
I agree. I totally agree. And I'll give you some examples of myself. Okay. Um, when I was working, I also had a business, a side business. Um, And so I was like, all right, I'm working all the time. Plus, we were doing the radio show and stuff like that. So it was just like I was going, 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 going.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now that I'm retired, I've been doing a little bit of the side business. I opened up a notary business. I, opened up a sublimation business. I, started doing all these other things because that's exactly what my brain was saying.
Yeah.
You're not being productive. You're not doing this. But then I became overwhelmed, so I had to step back from a lot of things. And what I realized is I have to follow my passion.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
passion isn't necessarily um, making money. My passion
Right.
is helping veterans in any way that I can. That's my
Absolutely.
passion. And that's not like, it doesn't feel like work. That just feels like I'm doing something out of the kindness of my heart and what I'm guided to do. And so that's what I'm doing.
No, I think you make an excellent point about like, 'cause that's what the conditioning is. It's that drive to make money, right?
Mhm.
And mind you, like we both are at a point in our lives where we can kind of sustain ourselves financially.
Right.
Although we both have been at points before where we've not had that luxury. And I
Absolutely.
think that that's probably the biggest thing that prevents people from reaching a point of work-life balance, because it's just you got to run yourself, into the ground where you're so exhausted because you just got to make ends meet. And
Mhm.
you can't. Like, a lot of people just can't right now. And I think to be able to get to that point in life where we can do the things that are enriching for us, like your volunteer work, I volunteer as well, doing this, I think that's one of the big reasons why we didn't continue the show after 2016, is because we both had like two jobs or more, and we were just so exhausted and stressed out, and we were just like, we sacrificed the creative energy and the creative output that we were doing with this in order to kind of batten down the hatches for ourselves, right?
True.
And do I regret it? Not necessarily, because I think that that's what we needed to do at the time. And we weren't at a point where we could sustain our creative outlets and work at the same time.
Right.
But I do think that we are now at this point where we are better equipped to navigate those things. And one of my big struggles with work life balance, so this kind of leads into my next question. What has your journey been like in achieving a work life balance? So, my journey has always focused on people pleasing. Like,
Yes.
in the workplace, am I a people pleaser? I will say yes to everything, even at my own expense, just to make people happy, to prove my worth, to be like, okay, I'm being productive. Here is proof of my productivity. Here's a listing of all what I did. And then I realized that I'm the only one doing that.
Yes.
Nobody else is doing that. Why am I doing that?
Right. Well, it's because you got to prove yourself. I do the same thing, or I've done the same thing. And it's like, oh, well, I got to prove myself. I got to prove my worth. I got to make them see that I'm right for this position or whatever. But the problem with that is you become stressed and overwhelmed, and then you start having mental issues, you start having physical issues, your anxieties are out there, and it's you snap at people, and it's that's not a good work life you know
Right. Well, and
balance.
heaven forbid you get a bunch of people who are doing this who become miserable working together, then. Like, that makes for a chaotic mess of a situation.
It does.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Well, and the thing is, like, I've watched so many people in my life, like, and this has kind of also informed my journey in achieving a work life balance. I've watched so many people just sacrifice everything for their 9 to 5 job. Everything. I don't mean just like hobbies, I mean like literally spending time with people. And it impacts relationships, it impacts friendships. And I think that that can be very detrimental to a person after a while, because once you get so honed in on just dedicating your life to that work and nothing else, you quickly realize that all the other people are falling away from you, and it
Hmm.
becomes very isolating.
It
That's
does.
part of why I really struggled. I was like, from like 2012 to 2014 thereabouts. Like, there was a couple of rough years for me where, like, I had multiple jobs and I was so focused on like how much more money can I make, to sustain myself. Am I going to survive? Am I going to make ends meet? That it started impacting my friendships and my relationships with family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's not a good place to be in. um because that's kind of what I did with my last job. Is I put everything that I had into it because that was expected to me. But then I lost friends. I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do outside in my garden, and that, I mean, and I was driving 45 minutes one way to work. And by the time I go home, I was too tired to do anything. And then I felt
Mm-hmm.
guilty because I wasn't doing anything, and it's like, look, my brain needs just a little bit of a break here. Uh,
Right.
So it's important to have that work life balance. It's important to take your weekends off and just go do something. It's important to get away from the cell phone. I
Mm-hmm.
say that, and I
Yeah.
say that to myself too. It's important to set it aside and get out in nature and have fun and go boating and go camping and take a trip. Don't wait till you retire to do it, because sometimes you don't make it to retirement. So why
Right.
wait? Go have
And
fun.
and if you're a person like me who, because I'm not a huge fan of, I don't mind traveling once in a while, but it's very, it takes a lot of mental preparation for me to travel. Um, it could be like just going outside, like
Mhm.
literally go outside and sit under a tree, like touch the grass, feel the grass, smell a rose.
That's right. That's right. Sit on our patio. I like that too.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's nice. No, like I do think that now that I've made the transition to teaching, one interesting thing that I've discovered about work-life balance is like it's a little bit more flexible of like when I have to be at places, but what I've sacrificed from not working at those 9 to 5 jobs anymore is work comes home with me now
Mhm.
constantly.
Mhm.
Emailing, grading, reading, planning, like all of that stuff comes home for me. And one of my biggest struggles has been time management and
Yes.
being like, okay, at a certain point during the day, I may not be in a 9 to 5 job, but at a certain point during the day, I got to shut myself off. I got to put the phone down. I got to close the laptop and I have to do something other than work, right? But because you're at home and it's so convenient, it's like, oh, I can just respond to this email really quickly, and then you get just sucked into this wormhole of, oh, well, I might as well do this while I'm doing it. I might as well do this. I might as well grade that. And it becomes a lot. So okay, what was it like for you navigating the struggle of work-life balance? Like, because, I mean, you've worked a diverse set of jobs in the past. Like, how has that changed for you throughout all of them?
Well, it's changed quite a bit. Like I said, when I was my last job, I did go to different places and stuff like that to work, and not all of them were close to home. So that took me away from that. And then there's obligations that you had to do things outside of work, within the
Mm-hmm.
community and stuff. So that took me away from that again. So it was always work, 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 work. Um, and then with the businesses that I have, or had at that particular time, there was obligations there too. So I had to do, that work, and then my business that I do have done, and then trying to be outside and do everything else. And it was a struggle. It was hard. And I caught myself being sometimes upset and angry and resentful
Mm-hmm.
because I saw everyone else doing different things or whatever they wanted to do within the company. And then some of them had to do what I had to do, but they didn't have what I had. And then I
Mm-hmm.
got down on myself, said, Brenda, you're being too hard on yourself, or you've overextended yourself. And it kind of come back and like, you. And some of it was, I have to agree, some of it was. I didn't have to try to keep myself busy all the time. And that was a big issue because I was busy all the time. I
Mm-hmm.
used to stay up and work on design and stuff like that till 11, 12 o'clock at night and get back up at 5.
Mm, yeah.
So and I used to do that weekends too. So that wasn't an easy thing to do.
Interesting.
And it was hard on my body and my mental state. Definitely.
And I think that people really underestimate the impact on mental health too.
Yes.
Right. Um, because like we really just worry about the physical health, but the mental health, like it kind of just etches away at you until then it becomes very noticeable where you just are kind of dissociating. You don't want to like do anything, participate. I noticed that my work life balance really suffered when I stopped wanting to do anything entirely. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to wake up. I didn't want to like. I still wanted to eat because that never changes. I still wanted to eat, but I didn't want to like go out with people. I didn't want to go see people. I didn't want to, and it like that's another aspect of it that I think really impacted like friendships and family relationships
Yeah.
too.
That was the state of depression that you were in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've been there, done that. You cancel when you say you did something, or yeah, you do it, and then that day comes around and you cancel, and it's not an easy thing to do, and it's hard to get out of once you get into that state.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, I guess when it comes to like we live in this society where we are so fixated on work. So the next question is, should we be completely fixated on work in life? What are the downsides of that? Well, we've already talked about some of the downsides,
Hmm.
but I want to talk about an interesting shift in thought that's been happening, and I think this very much has a result of the pandemic as well, and it has a lot to do with like the newer generation, like Gen Z, for example. So both myself and my fiance work with Gen Z, and we've noticed that Gen Z is not playing around with this anymore. Like the pandemic has taught all of us, but especially Gen Z, that like, you know what, there's a certain point where if we don't feel like it's worth it, then we just need to move on to something else. That we need to just, you know, pull up our britches and be like, all right, I want to do something that's more enriching for me and not just continue to be in this repeated cycle of like disappointment, this 9 to 5 exhaustion, right? And I had a very interesting conversation with a student this past semester, because the student had mentioned that they had gone through having like 3 or 4 jobs in the span of like 6 months or so,
Hmm.
which my millennial brain, I was like, what? How do you do that? How do you do that? And they were at a point where they were like, I just decided to go back to school. I'm not working right now. And I'm like, well, the reason was the jobs just like they felt like they weren't growing. They weren't being enriched by them, right? Like nobody wants to work and just feel like they're just placing their body on an assembly line for 8 hours a day, come home, sleep, repeat. Like people don't want to do that anymore, right? And I think that, I mean, I feel like there's been a lot of controversial response to it too, because like a lot of other generations, mine included, are like, well, you're just being lazy, you were entitled. And like I feel like every generation has had older generations tell them that they're entitled and lazy at a certain point.
Yep.
My generation's been told that. I'm sure at a certain point your generation was told that from older generations.
Hmm.
And I think what is the lazy? Like what is the entitlement? The lazy and then the entitlement is actually the discovery that what the discovery of the question of, are we living the life we want to live?
Well, it's interesting that you're saying all this stuff, because I too have had that thought when I was working, that the younger generation,
Mm-hmm.
the you said Gen Z, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the Gen Z generation, they don't have a work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just goes back to mom and dad, because mom and dad's like, okay, we got to stop this, or we got to do this, or we got to give the children more than what we've had. And then that's again a generational thing, generation to generation.
Right.
So, however, however, since AI, and before AI has come on the plane, okay,
Mm-hmm.
the younger generation has been standing up and saying, I'm not going to do that anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
I want to do this or I want to do that. You know, we always my generation complains that, oh, it's because of, playing on the cell phone and doing all this stuff all the time and blah 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 and playing games and all the rest of that. So, but it really, if you think it out a little deeper, AI is here to take over, not take over, but take the place of individuals, like the younger generation, of doing that type of work. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I have noticed that more Gen Zs in your generation want to be entrepreneurs, and there's more and more entrepreneurial
Mm-hmm.
abilities and opportunities out there than there ever has been.
It's interesting that you're mentioning this because I also think that, and there are some younger millennials in my generation that I feel like are very much on the wavelength of Gen Z. Um, but I feel like both your generation, because you're a boomer, right? You're a baby boomer.
I am right on the
So
tail
both your generation and my generation grew up kind of being told that we can only function within like a certain box,
end.
right? Where like you're like, okay, and I think a lot of that is tailored to us because of this concept of the American dream of looking like owning a house, having a white picket fence, a family, a dog, two kids, whatever. Like there was a specific image that was kind of conditioned in us to kind of strive for. And I think part of our growing pains in our generations has been realizing that the American dream does not need to look like that one specific thing,
Right.
right? And we were made to feel ashamed for not wanting that one specific thing, that
Mhm,
one specific image, right?
mhm,
Which I never really started unpacking until like maybe the last few years. That like my idea of what an enriching life looks like looks completely different from yours, from somebody else's, from a Gen Zer's perspective, right?
mhm.
And going back to what you were saying, like that Gen Z is very much passionate or very much more confident about saying no, that's refreshing
Yes, yes,
because we never were really taught or given the validation that saying no is okay.
right.
We were taught that saying no had consequences and that it would lead to destitution, right? When that's not the case, right?
No, it's not the case. Uh, Again, you think about it. Since the dawn of computers and things like that, and these new cell phones and iPads, and the younger generation are very savvy when it comes to technology.
Mm-hmm.
Very savvy. Not so much in my generation. Well, you have your smarties, but intelligent individuals.
You're one of those smarties.
But there's still a lot of individuals around my age that won't deal with computers or don't want to deal with computers and they're dumb, and but yet if we want to evolve, we have to go into this age. We have to go into the age of AI. The only downfall of that is hopefully people who are corrupt don't corrupt it. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's the issue because it can be very beneficial for us. And with that said, is when AI does do what it's supposed to do, it gives us more time to not have to do all of that heavy work, all the long hours and everything else, because AI is there to help. And then our work life balance, well, might go the other way where we don't even have a work balance. We just have life. Hey.
Right.
But it's going to be better. It's getting better. As you mentioned earlier, evolution is going faster and faster and faster. We're making more changes in things, and the energies within the planets and the solar systems and the solar flares and everything else is changing our molecular structures every single day,
Mm-hmm.
every single day. So what happened way back when, and we could wish for, oh, I'd love to go back to that time and things like that. There's no way, because we have progressed so much and the consciousness has risen so much that it will never go back there again in our lifetimes.
Mm-hmm. Forward momentum.
Exactly. So instead of complaining about AI, instead of complaining about Gen Z, just understand that there is a reason for all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to be productive, you want to learn more. And that's like, I always use the analogy from a movie called Johnny Five, where this computer robot, well, robot, we'll just say robot, where this robot gained a consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's like, get feed me, feed me, feed me, and he's like flipping through these books, and okay, where's the next one? And that's what our Gen Zs are doing, because they want to learn as much as they can,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Yeah.
really is here to help humanity.
Well, and the fact that we have so much access now to information,
Absolutely.
like that speaks, loudly in of itself, right? I sometimes will get in debates with like other faculty, for example, about like technology use and all of that jazz. Like, why can't we just go back to a time where we're just, pen and paper and it's like, like that's still here. Like that never went away. But if we have the tools to make things more efficient, more productive, and more enriching, why not use them?
Right.
Just like kind of like AI, like a lot of people are terrified of AI, and like I think it's because people have this conditioning where they think that AI is going to spiral into like this dystopian sci-fi fantasy thing, which I mean, if it's used wrong, who knows, right?
And right.
But
Right.
we create those stories to learn from the stories, right? Like to learn about the consequences of misusing things, of looking at our momentum as something that is just meant to one up someone else, right? It's
Right.
not meant to do that. It's meant to just create a more enriching world for everybody.
Mhm.
Like I know like so, like I mean in all the conversations that I've had with people who are in Gen Z specifically, like like when it comes to like being worried about world problems, like they are not worried about AI or technology. Like they are not. And they are more worried about the planet's health, the environment,
Mhm.
people's access to rights. And the thing is, like, I think that we get so caught up in like the smoke and mirrors and like the rhetoric that we don't really see like what these tools can be used for to make things better, right?
Right. I agree. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. And that's why I think that it bleeds into our work life balance because like working constantly, like I feel like also distracts us from being able to do, these enriching things that not only help our community but help our planet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. You have some really smart and wise young people out there that see things differently than you or I do. And they think beyond this little bubble that we live in, of our little atmosphere, our little earth that we
Mm-hmm.
make.
Right.
They see beyond that. Again, they grew up with technology, so AI is not going to bother them or doesn't bother them. But you're right. They are taking more of a conscious awareness to the planet and how it affects other people and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not all bad. And again, the work life balance is a necessity for quality of life.
Interesting. I
Because
like that you mentioned quality of life.
mhm,
that's a phrase that I think we need to internalize more. Like, what is quality of life for each of us, right?
Right, right.
Um, well, let's talk about hobbies for a second. Like, I feel like, I mean, coming from both of us, I'm sure you can relate with this as well, but I'm sure you've had people before tell you that your hobbies don't matter because they're not making money. Like, I know I've had that. I had so many years people tell me, well, like, why are you wasting all of your time writing and gardening or whatever when it's not making you money? And I would stop doing the things that I love because of that realization. I'd be like, well, I can't
People
commercialize
pleaser.
this. Yeah, it's also the people pleasing,
Yep.
but it's
Like
all that conditioning of like, oh, well, if I can't make money with this, then why should I waste my time? And now that I'm like older, I'm like, I wish I could have just told those people to, shut up.
stuff
Just
it.
shove it, shut up,
Stuff
and
it.
maybe you find something enriching to do so you're not still thinking about this dynamic, right?
Do you ever think about this too? Is if they see that you're doing something good and something that's making you happy, and they just say that to say that so you'll stop, but yet they continue to do what they want to do. I've seen that time and time again. It's like you do as I say, not as I do, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
really, really.
Or they are so caught up in their own fixation with work that if they see someone else doing something they love, they get envious of it
Yep.
because they aren't at the point where they have found a balance to do that, so they feel the need to kind of rip the rug off from some under someone else and be like, "Oh, well, if I can't experience this level of balance, then why should you?"
Right. That's true.
You
That's
know.
true. And that goes back to a lot of different things. You kind of hit the nail on the head. Like spirituality. We've gone through different spiritualities, but there are different religions out there that are like, no, 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 no. And it's because number one, they're afraid. Number two, they
Mhm.
don't understand because they didn't do research. They feel that if they do the research, then it's going to take them away from their belief system or their God or whatever. And again, I think I said this last time. If anything, it has made me closer to God, to
Mhm.
understanding and be more fulfilled through that process. So, and that's just like with the LGBTQ. People negate it, they slam it, they
Mhm.
curse it, they do all the rest of stuff. But have they ever asked what it is? Have they ever tried to understand those individuals who are gay, who are lesbian, who are this or that or whatever? Have they asked?
Mhm.
No. They're
Yeah.
stuck in that old paradigm that, oh, that's against this and this and this and this. Find out what your human compadres are like, are doing. Try to understand them all across the board.
Not to be
The-
cliche, but walk in other people's shoes.
Absolutely. That's the only way you're going to be able to understand. And that's the only way that you're going to have non judgment.
Mhm. It's all about educating.
It
And
is.
I'm always connecting everything back to the state of education because I do think that fewer people are being taught the significance of empathy, right?
Yep.
Because empathy is the bridge that allows us to understand people from different walks of life
Mhm.
with different histories and experiences. And just because, like, I know I posted something the other day, what was it? It said something along the lines of, like, if somebody comes out to you as trans, it's not your responsibility to understand necessarily, but it's your responsibility to accept them for who they are, right? If
Mhm.
it confuses you, if it doesn't make sense to you, like, that's fine. But there's a difference between allowing, like, being confused, but then, like, weaponizing that confusion to try to disempower someone in some way.
Right. Right. And that's why I always try to understand. I always try to put myself in other people's shoes so that I will be knowledgeable and to be able to help out if I need to help out.
Same.
I,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's like when we first met. You didn't know that I was accepting or anything like that, But it's like over time, then you understood, yeah, she's there for me. She's there to help me, to see a little bit differently and to be accepted.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, we all want to be accepted. The
We
bottom
do.
line, we want to be accepted for who we are, you know, and not what some people think we are.
And I think the cruel reality is that finding self acceptance in ourselves and then also finding the means to accept others, it takes work.
It does take work.
It's not going to always feel good because we grow up being conditioned by the people around us to have certain biases, certain perspectives, to look at people in specific ways. And as we get older, like I feel like it's our responsibility to kind of enmesh ourselves more so in the world and find ways to kind of corroborate those bits of conditioning to be like, okay, is this actually what the way things are? Or am I just looking at things through the lens of this conditioning that I experienced, right?
Yep. Yep. And 9 times out of 10, that's how we're looking at it. Just
Mm-hmm.
through that lens of conditioning.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
go ahead.
and I'm saying, and that takes us back to work-life balance, because if you're in a work situation and you have individuals who are different than you are, that is causing you stress because you're not asking questions to understand.
Mm-hmm. It's
You
funny
know,
that you transition into that because I literally was about to transition us be like back to work-life balance. We're always so in tune, Brenda dear.
I know, right?
I love it.
But but everything is connected. It's connected. So to be happy is to love. To love
Mm-hmm.
is to accept. To accept is to understand. And
I
to
love that.
understand is to grow. Don't ask me to say that again. Because I
I'm
won't.
not going to, but I think that that was perfectly stated, honestly.
Yeah.
And well, the final question was, what advice do you have for people maintaining a work-life balance? I think you kind of just answered it.
I think so too.
At the end of the day, like your life enrichment matters, right? And it's not that work can't be enriching too, but I think if anything, we've learned the last few years that we owe it to ourselves to, you know, do multiple things that we love to do, not just one thing, right?
Right. You owe it to yourself to take care of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because no one else is going to do that for you. In
Yeah,
working your tail feathers off to make a dollar is not the way to do it.
right.
Loving yourself, loving your family, taking the time for that, that work life balance is the way to do it, is the way to be, because
Yeah.
you're going to be much happier. Your family's going to be much happier. And, oh, well, if your boss isn't, he'll get over it. She'll get over it.
And yeah, if somebody else
You
is
got to take care of you.
not happy, yeah, if somebody else is not happy, I think it's on them and their responsibility to work on that, right?
Exactly.
Like, I mean, it's we can be there for other people. We can, be open to other people and help them. But at the end of the day, all we can do is open the door. They got to actually walk through it.
Yep. My own saying is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yep. Exactly. You know what, Brenda? As always, we have great conversations, and
We do.
I think now that we've gotten to this point in our lives, like I have found more work-life balance. You are retired now, and you are actually doing things that are enriching for you. I
Absolutely.
think now that we've reached the point where we can have this conversation, hopefully more people will see it and then ask themselves these questions too and have these same conversations.
Right. And the other thing too is what I was thinking about is if anyone, needs help or has questions or whatever, you could always reach out to us. We
Mm-hmm.
will always, I know, will always be available.
Yep. So, just an FYI, everybody, I do have our social media links linked below, so you can catch Brenda on Facebook. well, you know where to catch me everywhere, basically. So yeah, like we sometimes have to create a network for each other. And if you need a pep talk when it comes to finding a more work-life balance, you know Brenda and I will step up to that plate and we'll hit a home run when it comes to giving a pep talk. Am I making sports references?
I
Ooh.
think you are.
What reality are we living in?
Ever reality.
Everywhere,
Multi-universe.
every everything everywhere all at once, right?
Multi-universe.
My friends, thank you again for tuning in for another great conversation on universal journeys. And don't forget,
Follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you.
I love putting Brenda on the spot.
You surely didn't. I was preparing myself, but then I lost it. So yeah, definitely that's the biggest thing is follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. And no one else can tell you what that path is. You have to find it. And you will if you look.
Absolutely. See you on the flip side, everyone.
See you
Bye.
later. Have a great day.